Hello and welcome to our second video regarding research. Now here we're starting off by looking at types of source, and there are four main types of source: books, internet, journals and first-hand evidence. And by first-hand evidence I would mean a primary source such as an interview with the artist or even your own analysis of the artwork, because the art object is a research source itself. Now, ideas surrounding primary, secondary and also tertiary resources are quite complex, and this video is really designed as a brief overview. So rather than talk you through this, there's an external link here. Now you can't click on it in this presentation, but I've provided it underneath the presentation on your main course page. So go back to that research page, have a click on that link if you wish to, and it will talk you through ideas surrounding primary and secondary sources. Because we want to find the most reliable sources possible, and not really no source is completely reliable. All sources have some kind of bias, and a good example of that is looking at, say, internet and book-based sources. You could argue that an internet source is much more contemporary, more up-to-date, gives more relevant information. But equally, it might have a hidden agenda. Let's take the example of a commercial gallery page. Well, it may have fantastic information about an artist's work, but if the artist is actually exhibiting in the gallery at the time, the people who wrote the article might also have some kind of hidden agenda, or not so hidden agenda, and they want to sell the artist's work. So they're obviously going to portray it in the best possible light to make it seem very exciting. A book, by contrast, might be slightly more out of date. It might be an older source, but it is likely to have gone through an editorial process, and so the information in it will have been checked by a range of people, not just one person. So when we look at sources, as just that brief kind of explanation has shown, they will all have different pros and cons, and that's why we ask for a range of sources, and we ask you to recognise what might be positive about that source, what might be valuable, and where that source might be biased. And we do at Pick 1 insist that a large proportion of your research is from books, because they have been through an editorial process and they're widely recognised as the most reliable source of academic information. And what we don't want you to do is just go and do a very quick Google search, come back with 4 articles and present those as reliable sources. We need you to check and engage with your sources. So there's some more information, the 2 links above, and again I've provided direct links to those on the course page. Likewise, when you're looking at internet sources, and the internet is a brilliant has a wealth of sources and information, but you do need to check where that information comes from. And rather than talk you through this as part of this course, there's quite a useful YouTube video, and we've provided a link to that on the course page. But it really goes into more detail on the sort of information I've been talking to you about. So what we're looking for is for you to use a range of research sources. If you've been given a recommended reading list, you must read from that. And we heartily recommend a visit to the college library, which is absolutely excellent and provides a fantastic range of sources. Web and video sources are fine, but you need to check them for reliability, and what is not fine is the use of open edited sources such as Wikipedia. So please avoid using Wikipedia as a quoted source on your Pick assignments. Now you've got your lovely evidence in front of you. I now want to talk about academic reading, because academic reading can be very pleasurable, very stimulating intellectually, but it does use an entirely different set of skills than when you read a newspaper or a work of fiction. It's a job of work, and to engage with the content you might need to pause and read something 2 or 3 times. You might need to note down key points about the text. And you must remember you are reading for a purpose. You're reading to find information. So we suggest, if you're reading an academic text, that you index and annotate this text. that you use post-it notes or bookmarks to mark places in the text, and you can jot down the main point the text makes at the top of the post-it note. If you've bought the book, then do annotate in the margins. That can be really useful. But if you borrowed a book from a library, then you don't want to do that, because you will get in trouble with the librarians when you take it back. What we need you to do is to use some kind of system. Now, you may have found that you've already gone through a degree course and you have a system that works well, in which case, if it's working beautifully, don't change it. If you're new to this kind of academic work, perhaps try a post-it note system where you're writing down the information and marking where it is. The important thing is you note down what the information is and where it is. And when we look at referencing later, you'll see why this is so incredibly important. Now, the next thing we're going to come to is how you present your evidence. So this is the end of this second vodcast. And before I move on, I'd like to direct you to the printable resource. Now, this is a handout that gives information from the entire presentation. And when it comes to academic reading, which we've just spoken about, it also gives you some external links to sites that give you frameworks for reading for a purpose. And if you're really worried about that, I'm going to direct you to the printable resource and say have a look at some of those as well. Okay, thank you very much.